So thank you, Blake, for your talk about nostalgia. Blake mentioned stories, and I think it's very interesting. Before I ask for questions, I just want to say that it's very interesting that, in fact, the thing that makes the Zen literature so different from the rest of Buddhism is that it's almost all stories. It's the koans. You know, a monk says to Jojo, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" And Jojo says, "No." And that's transmitting the tradition. And all these stories, all these koans, they're that's how the tradition is. But they're not nostalgic stories. They're definitely not. So are there any questions? Okay.
Okay, so speaking to the turbidity of the mind during meditation, because there's a...
Speaking to the what of the mind?
Turbidity, like...
Turbidity,
yeah.
Okay, turbid.
Yeah,
Okay.
during
Right.
meditation, because a lot of expectations are brought to it, and definitely once sitting begins, that doesn't match. So why continue to subject yourself?
Because you don't get what you expect. You get what you need, okay? Can't get no satisfaction, but if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need, okay? So yeah, so you have expectations, right? Yeah. Like this person who, Blake was talking about at his Thanksgiving with his in-laws, and this person starts saying, "Oh, Buddhism must be so wonderful. I've been reading Hinduism, and you just get this enlightenment, and you just reach out, and there, and it's a story, right? So you have a story about what you'd happen when you hit the cushion, right? You sit there. I don't know what your story is, but I know what my story used to be. You sit there, and all of a sudden, like, everything opens up, and the bodhisattvas come down from the clouds, and the angels sing, and the light flash. I don't know. What you get is what you have. Okay? So you see this mind. That's the point. The point is not to have, bodhisattvas floating down, I don't know, harps playing or something. The point is to see this mind. So this exact meditation that you think, "Oh, I'm such a failure at meditating, why should I bother?" That is good meditation. Whatever good meditation, what a terrible phrase. That's practice. It's not good, it's not bad, it's practice. That's practice. Oh, look at that shit. That's practice. Yeah, and sometimes you really focus, what am I? You can really focus on that, and you can really like ride that. It's like you're riding it like a surfer in the waves. You're just riding it, except you're going into the ocean, not out of it. Sometimes that happens, and then suddenly, whoa, look at that shit, So it's not about, you attain this space, this peace. No, that's not what it's about. It's about waking up, and waking up includes waking up to what an asshole you are, That's fine, and then you forget you don't have to call it asshole. That's just okay. That's just Courtney, And so, yeah, so you keep at it. You just keep at it. When I go on I don't know, I'm so old now, I probably will never do it again, but I used to go on long meditation retreats, solar retreats, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, one time 90 days. And, when you're up there in the mountains or wherever, I was always in the mountains, and there's nothing around you to distract you, right? So the first few days, your mind is sort of roiling, around and around and around. And then gradually you realize that there's no input to that turgidity. There's no input to that roiling. And so gradually it starts to calm down, and it starts to calm down, and it starts to calm down, and then you sit there. And it's like, you really think, that's not when the retreat really starts. The retreat really starts when that stops. For me, it's usually around the beginning of the second week. That stops, and then you really can see your mind. You really can see it, and you don't watch it. But it just passes by you. You don't attach to it, but it's there, and you do actually attach to it. But you realize, not a good idea. So that's when the practice really starts, is when you see all that stuff. And it also can be good feelings too. Like you can, I remember I was listening to, early on in my practice, listening to someone give a Dharma talk about, how wonderful it was that since they were practicing and they were sitting in a cafe and everything went right. And, and I thought, no, they're homeless people. There's war. There's disease. There's suffering. If you're sitting there thinking that your cup of latte is like, waking up, you got a lot of work to do. So it's not like this, everything's perfect, everything's wonderful. Our mind has to be completely open, just completely open to everything. So that's practice. And keep doing it, okay? All right, thank you for your question. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Well, Blake was talking about some of our traditions, and made me think in our temple in Korea, Musangsa, has these 4 really large, impressive dragons on the corner of each roof, and they have these big orbs in their mouth, which are wish-fulfilling jewels, I guess, something like that. But anyway, as I recall, I think I tried to look this up one time, those dragons are supposed to be protectors of the Dharma. And I think some of the, the kings up there in our altar mural are also protectors of the Dharma. But, the Dharma is vast and wide and it has no form. So what is there to protect?
Did that jewel fulfill your wish? Yeah, so this goes back to what Blake was talking about. We need stories, we need metaphors. How do you use those? So the Dharma protectors, that's a wonderful, wonderful metaphor. Every one of us is a Dharma protector. Why not? Okay? All right. Thank you. That's a clip for YouTube. Okay. Are there any other questions? Including there are a lot of people online who have not said anything. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yay.
Okay, mind-to-mind transmission. That seems kind of like you were saying, that it's going to open up and the angels are going to sing and the harp music, and the 2 minds are going to blend, your harp music, my harp music, and it's then, I don't know, it doesn't really, mind-to-mind transmission doesn't seem to make sense to me. I don't really understand it. So my question is, what is it?
You've been married for a long time, right?
Yeah, a little over 30 years.
Yeah, right. And your husband just says one word, and you know exactly what he means. Not all the time, but some of the time. Yeah? That's mind-to-mind transmission. Okay? I'm not going to say anymore. Anything else?
I'll try one thing.
Okay.
Um,
You can try 2, but yeah.
well, I'll stay with one question first. Okay. But referring to Blake's talk, when he's talking about nostalgia or remembering the past or whatever else, and not trying to hold on to it. If we don't remember the past, or if we don't hold on to our memories of the past, the question is, what do we hold on to?
Don't make anything. Don't
Thank you.
hold anything. Yeah. Also, the past is very interesting because memory, nobody's memory is infallible. You invent your memories all the time. Your memories are, it's like you're constantly revising the story of your life. You know, I kind of like to read neurophysiology because it's kind of cool. You know, there's studies that they do, you know, with things like, you know, they give you word lists or something, and then they do another word list and go back to the first word list, and the second word list affects the first word list. I just made that up, but, you know, they have things like that, very simple things that you can do with colors and shapes and words and things, and they can see you know, you can't see the process, like the little nerve signals being sent and the chemicals, you don't see that, but what you see is the result, which is that there's this constant revision of our memory. And everyone's experienced this. You know, you have, like, think of your first girlfriend or boyfriend, right? And there they were, and they were the love of your life. And then there was this horrible breakup or something, or maybe you drifted apart, and then suddenly you don't remember them quite as fondly. Even when you're thinking of the good times, they're not quite as good as you thought of it when you were in that relationship. So, you know, we just do that all the time. So what is there to hold on to? There's nothing to hold on to. So thank you. Yeah, vast emptiness, clear like space. Okay, to quote Bodhidharma. Thank you for your question. Are there any other questions? Okay.
How do we help a loved one to, you know, relieve their suffering?
I don't know. That's a very general and vague question, very abstract. So what kind of suffering? What's your relationship to this person? What are their particular beliefs and what is their point of view in this world? So every moment, every moment. So, you know, maybe somebody has a headache, it's really easy, give them some aspirin or something, you know, unless it's, you know, a migraine, then it's not so easy. But yeah, so sometimes it's very simple, sometimes it's really hard, especially when the story that they tell themselves is self-destructive. That's really hard. So if you have an idea of what somebody needs, unless it's a very simple thing like, you know, your kid cuts his or her finger, whichever kid it is, and you grab the Band-Aids, right? That's easy. But most of the time, if we have an idea of what somebody should do, it's not necessarily the right thing for them. It's not necessarily something that will work for them. So really be open and listen. And maybe out of that, something becomes clear. That if we step into a situation where I know what you should do, 90% of the time we're wrong. Sometimes we're right, like when Stan's naturopathic doctor looked at his blood test and said, you have to see a hematologist right away. That was a good thing to do. But usually it's not that clear. Usually it's, you know, really not clear. And then we have to just be open and compassionate and suspend our point of view and just listen to the person. And often that's enough. Because most people, we suffer from not being listened to. I mean, how many times have you spoken to somebody, you know, pouring your heart out, and you just saw that they had some idea and they couldn't really hear you? So don't be that person who has this idea and can't really hear. Okay?
Okay, yeah, maybe a more specific version of the same question. Say your loved one has been diagnosed with the terminal cancer.
Yeah.
How do you help to relieve their suffering?
Has that happened to you?
Yes.
Yes, I'm very sorry to hear that. Yeah, so love them. Just love them. They will have to deal with their illness the way they deal with their illness. If we have an idea of how someone should deal with a situation like that, we can't help. I mean, you might want them to get this great acceptance and just sort of kind of, it's okay. You want them to feel that way. But they have to do it, dying is really hard work. When you see someone dying, it's really hard work, and they have to do that themselves. And the best you can do is just be there for them. Just be them for them. And don't go into the thing. I remember when my mother was dying, and she had her fourth major stroke, and they called us from the nursing home, and they said, "You all have to get down here." So people flew from all over the country. And she was in a coma at that point, but people don't lose their hearing. That's the last thing to go. And her brother and sisters were standing there saying, "Oh, Ethel, you look so terrible." And I'm like, no, you don't want to tell her that. And I just took them out of the room. And then the nurse was like, "Go into the light." And I took her in the room. I said, "Don't you tell my mother to go into the light. She'll go into the light when she's good and ready. It's not your," I was so pissed off at everybody. And I just sat there and I just said, "It's okay." But I don't know if that was the right thing to do. That's just what I said. I just said, "It's okay, Mom, it's okay," And she waited till we were all gone, and then she died. She didn't want to be around us. But yeah, it's really, it's tough, and everyone has to find their own way. And just be loving and be open. And I'd give you a hug, but we're too far apart. So we will chant for this person. Who is this person? Your father. Tell us his name, and we will chant for him. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes. And great good luck. So, thank you. And that's a good place to end questions. So, thank you very much. We can stop recording.